This is the floor of the Wisconsin State Assembly, where legislators pass bills, yell at each other, and generally make members of the opposite party miserable. But they do all agree on one thing, that they all deserve to keep their jobs for as long as they want them.
In fact, Wisconsin has one of the lowest turnover rates of any legislature in the nation. It seems that here in Wisconsin, more and more legislators are using their job not as a public service, but more of as a retirement plan.
Let's look at the numbers. For the past 3 decades, turnover in the Wisconsin Senate has been among the lowest in the nation. Same goes for the Wisconsin Assembly. In fact, since 1963, only 5.3% of incumbents have lost general elections in Wisconsin. Aside from legislators having more job security, the Wisconsin legislature has also undergone other drastic changes over the past several decades. For instance, the typical Wisconsin legislator is getting much older. In 1977, the average age for senator and representatives was 43 and 42 respectively. By 2007, these averages had jumped to 55 and 50. State legislators spend a lot less time debating bills on the floor in the past. In 1961, the Assembly and Senate together met 369 days. By 2005, that number had dropped to 141, a reduction of 62%. Let's take a look at the life of the typical Wisconsin legislator. In his freshman session in the Assembly, he introduces about 6 pieces of legislation. By his 10th year in the legislature, having learned so much more about state government, his bill output has doubled. But then a curious thing happens. Once he gets past 12 years in the legislature, he virtually stops introducing bills. In fact, legislators with more than 12 years of experience, on average, actually introduce fewer bills than freshman Assembly people.
So that leaves us with legislators who are older, who work less, and who have better job security. It's no secret that legislators aren't very popular these days, and this could be one reason why. That's why over 20 states have moved towards term limits for their legislators. A recent WPRI poll shows that 72% of Wisconsin residents support some kind of term limit. Governor Jim Doyle has said he supports them, as well as Scott Walker and Mark Newman, the 2 GOP candidates in 2010. So it should be pretty easy to pass them, right? Well, not exactly. And the reason is obvious. Legislators are looking out for their own jobs.
We do have term limits in the state of Wisconsin. We call them elections. And I want them to stay that way because I don't want the bureaucrats to have the only institutional memory in the state of Wisconsin.
Alright, let's just stop right there. Let's talk about this institutional memory Senator Cogs is so fond of. It's all this institutional knowledge that recently led the state into a $6.6 billion deficit. Even with over $3 billion in tax increases in the most recent budget, legislators left us with a structural deficit of over $2 billion heading into the next biennium. In fact, increasing deficits have been the norm over the past decade. Legislators continue to pay for state government with one-time gimmicks and budget tricks in order to make the budget appear balanced. One of these budget tricks has been to issue debt for ongoing state programs and making future generations of taxpayers pay for them. As you can see, the amount of debt issued by the state has exploded over the past several decades, all to start government programs now and pay for them later. But what about elections? If we don't like our legislators, can't we just vote them out? Well, it's actually a lot more complicated than it sounds. In a perfect world, we'd get rid of legislators we don't like, but in practice, voting out an incumbent is virtually impossible. Over the past 44 years, an average of only 1 incumbent state senator and 5 incumbent state representatives have lost per general election. 95% of legislators who run are re-elected. This is in large part due to all the advantages incumbent legislators grant themselves during the course of their careers. These include adding pork projects to garner voter favor back home, unlimited campaign time while being paid by the taxpayers, taxpayer-funded legislative staff, media attention, control over redistricting, and controlling campaign finance laws that mute opposition. Legislators also spend millions of dollars on mailings to constituents that are completely indistinguishable from campaign literature. They show them posing with soybeans, posing with puppy dogs, canoeing, and dressing up like an FBI agent to take down a drug house.
To restore electoral competitiveness, Wisconsin should do what 20 other states have done and move towards a system of term limits for their legislators. If you want more information on what other states are doing, or more information on term limits in Wisconsin, please visit the Wisconsin Policy Research Institute website at wpri.org. Thanks.